Good evening and welcome to the Forum Members Surgery Live, the stream that connects the membership to the rest of the union on behalf of the North East region. My name is Scott Haslam, President of the Leeds #1 Amalgamate branch. And in tonight's session, I'm joined by Tony Bouch, CW National and Postal Executive Member, Dave Wilshire, currently a National Executive and Postal Executive Member. And we want to talk about the parcel delivery routes, Sunday deliveries, culture, collections, and also give a bit of an update on where we are with the average holiday pay claim this evening. Hi, guys. Now, Tony, would you like to introduce yourself for those people that may not know you?
Yeah, with you, Scott. Evening to everyone. Obviously, Tony Bouch, NEC and Postal Executive Member. Been on the NEC since 2011 from the Plymouth and East Cornwall branch. Held a number of roles in the union, so local rep in delivery offices, local rep in distribution, area rep, and obviously then branch secretary before I got onto the executive. So yeah, I'd like to think I can throw my hand to anything, Scott.
Excellent. And Dave, we're going to give a brief outline of your background.
Yeah, of course. This is my second time on the National Executive and Postal Executive. I've done 2 spells totaling just over 10 years. I was branch secretary of the Bristol and District Amalgamated branch for 10 years in between, and worked for every department over my time at CW headquarters, and represented most groups of members in the branch at one time or another.
Excellent. Thank you for guys. So if you are watching and have a question in relation to any of those topics for tonight, pop them in the comments. They should pop up in our stream and then we can try and address them throughout the night. I'd be also most grateful if you could help us share and reach to as many members as possible by sharing the streams and tagging your colleagues in the streams you're watching in. Equally, if you can like our CW Leeds page, North East Regional page, I'm sure Plymouth would also like you to like their page, and the Leeds YouTube channel. So let's get this session into full flow and stop wasting time. Right. To start off then, Tony, shall we kick off with parcel delivery routes, and what is a parcel delivery route, why are they coming in, and just sort of give us a bit of a background story and where we are with it, really.
Yeah, we'll do, no problem, Scott. So I think it's been well versed in sort of the last few years in terms of the direction of travel. So we did the 4 pillars agreement. The 4 pillars agreement said we would look at the direction of travel for the postal industry over the next 3, 5, 7 years, but that's probably been expedited because of the pandemic. So where we've particularly over the last sort of 12 months, without a shadow of doubt, the business were probably in a view where we weren't probably in the best of relationships before the pathway to change agreement. There was a number of trials that were being progressed without sort of CW involvement. The business's view was at that time looking to take the large parcels off the delivery routes, and it was all about sort of what got left on the delivery routes, how many offices would do the large parcels, and what did a delivery job look like in the future. So that was where we came from. Obviously, fast track to where we are now. We've got the agreement that says in the pathway to change agreement that dedicated parcel routes can be introduced across all units. So that's the positive. So that's changed the Royal Mail mantra for they would be concentrated into sort of 350 offices. So we've got that agreement that they can all do that now. We've got the Royal Mail joint pipeline talks that I sit on behalf of the union, along with Mike Bouch and a few other PC members. And again, that is looking at, again, the direction of travel consultants that Royal Mail are using, because, clearly, and not everyone would have seen this yet. And again, I've only had the chance to probably skim read this today. But even when you look at the Royal Mail financial results today that they've declared, you can see the narrative and the change and the challenge we have. So for argument's sake, parcel growth is up for the last financial year by 32%. That obviously means the revenue's gone up for parcels by sort of 38%. Track volumes are the highest they've ever been in terms of an increase, but they're up by like 80-ish%. And I think for Royal Mail Group now, 72% of the revenue is attributable to parcels. And that clearly changes the demographics of what we do as a union and how we do the jobs. And particularly when we go forwards, what does that look like for our members? Is the business is now looking to automate more of that. So I think there's talks around the Northwest hub in Warrington, and there's a hub in Midlands. But then there's discussions in the pipeline talks around, is there going to be a third hub? Is there going to be a fourth hub? What does that look like in terms of the direction of travel over the next 10 years? So all of those high level stuff are taking place. But in reality, the challenge we face is we've got, 60,000 delivery routes up and down the country, where, at least probably 40,000 then before the pandemic were planned on shared vans. And yet we've got as that growth is, continuing alongside that direction of travel, can the format 3 and 4, so parcels that are bigger than a shoebox, are they going to be able to continue to be delivered through shared vans? And again, so I don't think when I was on delivery, I used to do parcel routes, as part of my duty at the time. So I don't think it's anything different. But again, I think it's the change in the narrative from when we've gone to shared vans. It's about what does that look like, and again, what does that look like in the delivery offices? So there's a huge amount around it, which we'll touch on in a minute. But that I would say that's the why and the what, Scott, for this minute.
Excellent. Certainly it's probably before my time, and I've been in the business since late 90s, sort of early noughties. And I think I was speaking to our branch secretary, and he said sort of 25, 30 years, they actually were dedicated parcel routes back then, and they've kind of gone full circle as what seems to be the case in Royal Mail as a whole. They sort of reinvent the wheel and somehow managed to palm it off as something new. But that's where we are. So in terms of the parcels coming out and the reason why they'll be coming out, there's been some cases that we've been dealing with around conduct, and some of it about security of the mail. So clearly you've got these smaller vehicles working 2 out of a van, you've got all the mail, everything else, and then you've got the increase in parcels. And then remember, some of the management team have been challenging some of our members as relation to the security, where parcels have been falling out. So, by pulling the parcels out and going onto a dedicated parcel route, that may help and increase the security of the parcels. So how exactly would we look at deploying the parcel routes, Tony? So, is it just a case of going to swarm the network with extra people, or is it going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul, or a bit of both?
I think this is where, not necessarily a difficulty, but we're probably, because of the way in which we're trying to integrate it with the delivery revisions. So again, obviously, the dedicated parcel routes is being introduced alongside structural revisions in delivery. And in the structural revisions in delivery, we land on model week 14 for the traffic, but that doesn't necessarily mean model week 14 is the right week to base your dedicated parcel routes on. So we're having some conversations around that. That's where we are now, but we're going to have to review that going forwards. The second part is around, again, the whole premise of the dedicated parcel routes is units have got the ability themselves on what suits those offices. So in terms of the tools we use, in terms of the planning we would do at that stage of the delivery vision, offices may select, there's certain walks that are out of scope. So whether it's a rural delivery, whether it's a delivery that's in an urban area that's just, for argument's sake, tower blocks, it doesn't make sense to do that. Whether it's like, for argument's sake, in near train stations or the city area where actually put it onto vans, it just doesn't make sense. You can have the ability to turn all of that off in the process. Likewise, if a unit says, well, we haven't got the appetite for people wanting to do, whether it's a day shift, whether it's a PM shift, whatever that looks like, again, you've got the ability to configure that yourself. So the system will say, based on the traffic for your office, you're due to have 4 or 5 dedicated parcel routes. The office might go, well, we only want 2. And all you would do then is switch off the walks that doesn't make sense, keep it on the 2, it will plan in the walks that you would do, parcels would come off it, make the walks. Now, where we're trying to balance that off, though, is, and this is where it's difficult to a degree, is every office is starting from a different place, because we've got some offices that the delivery revisions are correcting a previous revision because they've seen an increase in delivery points, they've seen an increase in volumes, both letters and parcels. Likewise, because of the change I touched on earlier on around the parcel traffic, we've got a substantial increase in track. So in some instances, previous revisions have said our office has got 20, 25, 30 attendance calls. We're now seeing 100 attendance calls, which means there's greater time. So actually taking the large parcels off just means those delivery routes are able to actually complete what they're due to do now. So actually it is solving a problem in some instances. I think the bigger thing, and this will be the test when we go forwards, is, I think the plan at this moment in time, depending on what happens with the pandemic, is, 21st of June, all being well, all of the restrictions are moved. That's potentially where the business look to reintroduce shared vans. However, as I say, there will be a situation where some of those shared van pairings can't go back together because of the increase in parcels traffic, because you won't be able to get everything in the van. And I think what will happen in that scenario is that's where people will start to think, actually, we do need to look at some dedicated parcel routes, or we do need to do something differently, because at this moment in time, I think I was in Swindon yesterday morning, the number of vehicles they've got is sort of in some instances doubled and trebled because of the hire vehicles. So it's helping the problem. So I think all of it will sort of come to fruition over the next couple of weeks and months. But the key thing for us is we're on a journey. We want this workload because it's growth, it's new products and services. The fact that Royal Mail have opened up to Sundays now is, whilst we're winning contracts on Sundays, we're now in a situation where that is driving contracts coming back in on Monday to Saturday, which again is new workload for us. So particularly where there has been letter decline, the growth in parcels will help the union. Both two things: one, it will sustain some of the jobs that we want in terms of workload, but actually, if it continues to get Royal Mail's revenue up, that will enable the union, when we go into negotiations on things like the short working week on pay deals, that we'll be able to say that the business is being successful because of the things we've done in those negotiations.
Yes, I picked up on a particular phrase that you use, and coming from a diesel background, so an heavy goods, you said out of scope. Now, out of scope to me means a taco or a non-taco vehicle. Now, I do have a vague understanding what the out of scope is, but just in case anyone's tuning in, wondering what on earth an out of scope is in terms of deliveries, would you be able to just expand on what that means, Tony, please?
Yeah, so in simplistic terms, Scott, is you've got 50 delivery routes in an office. You review, the system would say, based on the delivery point density for that geographical area for the 50 walks, 40 walks are due to be in scope for dedicated to have their parcels delivered through dedicated parcel routes. 10 are out of scope because they're rural duties, and it doesn't make sense. The delivery density is down, but the offices review that. So that we might be having a conversation amongst ourselves and say, there's one there that's right on the border, but it makes sense for it to be in scope. But likewise, you might say there's one that's in scope, makes sense to go out of scope because, the nature of that job. So that's what it means. Out of scope, in scope is purely the offices review the data and they can agree that themselves.
Yeah. So effectively, in I suppose Scott language is the more dense, the more number of houses, the more likely it's going to be in or out of scope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sound. So the couple of comments in the stream, it's about van sharing, and in particular one from Pete about the 21st, which you did reference. Now that might change, to be fair, and what he's saying is they'll go back to if we go back to van sharing. Another comment is asking why aren't we going back to van sharing, but if we do go back to van sharing, the fleet needs a major overhaul. So in terms of parcel delivery routes, specifically, will there be sort of an overview and a review of the, I suppose, the vehicles in offices and I don't know, purchasing the appropriate size vehicles, Tony?
Yeah. So I mean, as I said, I think the 21st of June is all predicated on what happens with the government's restrictions first and foremost. And I know the officers, Mark, Dave Joyce, are looking to issue a joint statement that picks up the health and safety part, but also the wider operational impact, because like I said, there will be parts where 2 walks just can't go back into a van because of the growth. So there's that to pick up. In terms of the vehicles, though, the business are looking, and they've already ordered some of the Peugeot Experts, the L3 model, which are the bigger and longer wheelbase vehicles. But again, and they're also looking at obviously the electric fleet. But likewise, there is only so many vehicles I think that can procure at any given time. So we have agreed that, for argument's sake, some units that have decided to do dedicated parcel routes would review the neighbouring offices, because it could be an office 5 miles down the road doesn't want to introduce dedicated parcel vans, and some vehicles could be swapped between the two sites to make that more beneficial. But the whole premise of what a van looks like is being picked up, and likewise, look, I think the future model of what vehicles look like is part of the discussions we're having as well, because again, we were in Swindon yesterday looking at the dedicated parcel routes that they've done in Swindon, and there is a view, I know you know this because we've had a chat, but if you look at some of the duty patterns that you would have negotiated over the year in network, you have in it of duty patterns. So whether that's a 3-day week, 4-day week, a 9-day fortnight, all of that brings opportunities, and the workload in dedicated parcels will bring those opportunities. But if the vehicle then is the barrier to me saying, well, we could actually introduce a 3-day week on a dedicated parcel in an office, actually, though, the only barrier to it, we've got the workload, we've got individuals that want to do that. The barrier is we haven't got the vehicles that can fit the parcels in because of the size and scale of it. That then becomes a barrier to us introducing those into duty patterns. And the whole issue of vehicles is looking at the layout in the back. They looked at a Mercedes Sprinter which has shelving in the back, which our members think is great. They've looked at some different concepts similar to like the UPS one, where the passenger seat isn't there, and obviously you can exit the vehicle from the passenger side, and likewise you can go into the bulkhead from that bit. But again, the challenges that brings is I might be doing a parcel route, but there's certain parts of the geographic area where it doesn't go down that street, and there isn't no turning circle to turn it around. So there's pros and there's cons, and obviously the whole issue of looking at the vehicles is something we're picking up, mate.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So dedicated parcel routes is something that is certainly, hang on, we've got a Dave Thomas here. Dave, any chance that Dave Wilshire can smile?
Is that all right?
Yeah, it just tickled me, did that. Yeah, so delivery routes, we're talking sort of generically about a Monday to sort of Friday, or Monday to Saturday actually, but the other area we want to sort of cover is the Sunday deliveries, and actually the Sunday delivery is very much the same as the Monday to Saturday aspect. So is there actually any difference other than maybe just the actual amount of work, or is there going to be any difference in how they structure the routes on a Sunday compared to the rest of the week? And in terms of the in-scope and out-of-scope, I'd imagine because there's no core deliveries on a Sunday, they'll all be in one category.
Yeah, so the Sunday pretty much mirrors the LAT, so the later acceptance times, the sort of PM delivery that we do, which we've been doing since 2018 in the PM delivery. It's been done about sort of circa 310 offices do it Monday to Saturday. The Sunday we've landed on a scope and exercise for the delivery of test kits and Sunday delivery of products. We've sort of around about 350 units, and they do obviously deal with the wider catchment area. But again, the words in the Pathway to Change agreement are explicit that units will be able to introduce it as part of workload, but for anyone doing it as duty, it would be voluntary. So, for argument's sake, no one can be paid to do that as part of a duty on a Sunday. You'd have to do it voluntary. But again, I think this is where, when some of our reps are starting to embrace this in terms of the duty option. So, again, if you're a unit that's got 5, let's just say you're a unit that's due to have 5 dedicated parcel routes or 5 routes on a Sunday, then some offices are looking at it going, well, we want to have 2 or 3 on scheduled attendance as an earnings package for those offices in terms, for the whole office. People can put that on a rotation. And some of the other units are going, well, then the other 2 or 3, depending on how you split it up, we're going to put that to duties as part of our revision. and we're going to make that attractive in terms of attendance patterns. So, some are doing it as a 4-day week. Some are looking to see what they could do as a 3-day week in terms of a trial. I know the North East region, particularly in, I think it's Newcastle Mail Centre, are trialing a 3-day week in terms of processing. So again, what does that look like if you've got the ability to do that? And likewise, we've also got the ability that says, well, if there are no volunteers in an office, then if there is a vacancy, and that vacancy would say a 28-hour position, why wouldn't we make that a 35-hour position and make it a full-time position, and potentially, particularly if it's been advertised externally, make it, say, Wednesday to Sunday or whatever that fits for that part-time duty, so that person knows they're coming in. Because for me, and I've always thought this, that workload is power if you're a rep in an office, in the sense of it gives you the ability to be innovative and come up with all sorts of attendance patterns and work around that. And likewise, it's a growth area for us. It is, I think we started off the sort of beginning of March getting into the test kits enabled Royal Mail to sort of introduce it a bit. But I think the Sunday just gone, the business, we're now at sort of nationally 11 customers, and it's growing. More and more looking to sign up to it. And I think the Sunday just gone, we were around about 80,000 items. So it's a growth area. It's something obviously that will look to protect jobs upstream, both in terms of the RDCs, logistics, distribution, running the services around the country. And obviously in terms of delivery, it will be, obviously we've got to deliver the items. So again, it's about how can we make it better. So in terms of the arrival profiles, can we do it more slicker? But there'll come a tipping point that says, the existing network will have to be invested in to try and get stuff out earlier, because there's no good if in one geographical part of the country, if it arrives 2 p.m. to the delivery office and you've only got, say, a 4 or 5 hour window to deliver it, you need the bigger delivery window to get the items out there, particularly with the growth. So huge opportunities for us. We're looking at everything in regards to Sundays, to the new PDAs coming in, to the route optimization and navigation app on the PDA where you get your manifest, looking at the new mapping systems on the PDA. How can we get hazards? So, Dave Wilshire, would know the Bristol area, for argument's sake, well, but if Dave was doing the neighbouring office, Dave wouldn't know necessarily there's a dangerous dog that is in the block of flats or whatever. So how do we get that onto the PDA? All of that is subject to the discussions we're having with the business now, because we need to do it quicker to get all of those things lined up to enable to make sure our members have got the tools to do the job.
Excellent. So there's quite a few comments coming through now, and I've just made some quick notes. Some of them specifically about Sunday premium. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's around £6, is it an hour, £6 something? I'm just trying to find the first one now. It's Pete's. There you go, Sunday. Pete. So the Sunday pay isn't appealing for some. I know we have 7-day working throughout the business, but an extra £1 isn't very enticing for delivery staff. Again, that £6 isn't a pound, is it, Tony? So, but there's some concern or maybe misunderstanding what the difference is. Maybe that's the difference on overtime. You've got someone else, Andrew, need better Sunday pay also. Today's massive profit announcement, yada, 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 yada. So, yeah, there's money available is what people are saying from the results. But in terms of, we had this discussion offline, didn't we, about, say the delivery, the structural revision, they've gone in with 1 in 4 Saturdays. And we've got then some full-timers there which have got 1 in 4 Saturdays off, and that generates, as I understand it, a part-time role that does a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That does the day off, the delivery part of their day off. Now, if we, for example, utilise some substantial, get it right, work on a Sunday and deploy that as part of a 5-day work, we've got a potential uplift in part-time to full-time, and the pay rise then would be to the tune of £6 some an hour, depending on the span. We could be looking at £60, £70 a week increase. Is that about the amount of it, Tony?
Yeah, it is, mate. Yeah. So what you've got is the situation where the Sunday premium is for conditioned hours. I think it's just under £6 per hour, as you just said. So if I was doing a 7-hour attendance on a Sunday, as part of my contract, obviously we get the actual rate, but I'd get 7 lots of £6, so an extra 42 quid for working that Sunday. So again, that's where obviously someone can volunteer it. But if we're building that as part of a structure, and again, it's trying to make that as more attractive as possible, isn't it? So, could you get, if an office, say, needs to have 5 people on a Sunday, it could be that you go 2 or 3 on scheduled attendance, and we might have one duty that we're going to put a 10-hour day in, and that's £60 per Sunday. So they're getting their weekly wage for working 35 hours a week, and on top of that, they would get the enhanced lump sum of £60 because for the conditions hours. So it's a positive in that sense. And like you said, in terms of the unit, so we want to get to a situation where the Sundays has already been working since sort of March time. Well, it's been working for the last 12 months around COVID test kits. And in lots of instances, yes, that's been done on agency and casuals in some of the offices. The current resourcing on Sundays is around about 50% OPGs, 50% casual and agency. But we want to make sure that we convert all of that to Royal Mail employees, 100% Royal Mail employees, CW members, and we can turn that into duty. So, again, offices have got the ability to do that as part of the structure. Someone might go, I want a 4-day week because it will suit some people. Some people it suits differently. I might go to the rep of an office, but if you can give me a 4-day week, I'm happy to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It suits my home life. It suits my partner. It suits with childcare, etc., etc. That's down to an individual. Not that person's not compelled to do it. Likewise, if an office can't get anybody to resource it, and we've got vacancies in an office which we're doing externally, again, the rep and the manager can say, well, we could do something with that vacancy. Rather than bring someone in on a 28-hour, we could bring them in on a 35-hour. So I think you've got the gift is there. The menu of options are all there. Again, it's the reps knowing their members in the offices. I might go, well, we can do that for dedicated parcel routes. So Tony does week 1 on dedicated parcel routes. Dave Wilshire does a delivery route, and then week 2, Dave Wilshire does the parcels, and I do the delivery route because that helps them with the fatigue element on delivery. I think everyone, people just got to come up with ideas, be innovative, embrace it, and I think you will find the solutions to all of it that protects our members.
That's an interesting comment, actually. I quite like that analogy where you could share the delivery routes with the actual the hard job that is walking the streets. There was a comment from Dave Walker about is there an agreement to the length of the water delivery spans that deliverer have to do? So you tell me if there is or isn't, but I would have thought certainly when we've gone into a startup structural revision in one of the Leeds offices, there was discussing about these duty spans or delivery spans, and they modelled it on 4.5 hours and they model it on 5 hours. But again, if you're going to be pulling some of the oversize out to go on dedicated parcel routes, then in theory that delivery walk would free up time because you're not knocking on a door to deliver a parcel. Therefore, potentially, you're going to be walking for a bit longer. So actually, by rotating that duty content, as you've just described, could be quite beneficial to members in deliveries for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the key thing on that, Scott, is again, it depends on where the offices are in terms of other traffic, because lots of offices have seen an increase in the smaller parcels, which again take additional time. Again, it's an attendance call, particularly with a scan. So it may well be you're taking the large parcels off the delivery route, but all you're doing then is meaning that delivery route can achieve and it can complete on any given day. You're solving the problem by doing it.
Yeah. So effectively, it comes back to almost what you're saying at the start, and it's something actually Bob Maguire, the division of Retford North East, said at one of our meetings that the dispute was about designed to fix deliveries, because historically it's been squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and these structural revisions really is about resetting it and freeing them up and making them so they can actually work based on actual workload. So yeah, that's great. I'm a bit conscious that Dave sat there and hasn't said 2 words. I'm sure he's enjoying the debate, but maybe if I could bring you in at this point, Dave, because I think it may be fair to say you've probably been in the business longer than Tony and I. I'm not saying combined, but certainly individually. Did you have like notional weekend workers where there was full time in Bristol? We certainly had some in Leeds. So with Bristol being quite a large mail centre, then at some point, I'm fairly sure that they've had a similar situation, and this might tie into future things possibly, where when you consider how much Sunday premium you'd get, that could effectively help reduce the number of gross hours that you'd work to get the same cash equivalent. So back then it was, you did 20 odd hours and you got paid full time. Is that something you can recall, and what were the sort of viewpoints back then?
Yeah, I mean, I can recall quite a lot of that, and I think the important thing to remember is that you said I've been in the business a long time, and yeah, it's over 30 years, and I think the important thing to remember is that there's always been changes to duties. There's always been changes to the way we work. When I started in the business, we had rotations where you used to, in a delivery office, you used to do 6 days on delivery, finish on the Saturday lunchtime, and then you were back in on the Sunday night. And all of these things that have evolved, we've always met resistance, even though we're trying to improve things. And notional weekend duties, and indeed other weekend duties, we had in Bristol Mail Centre 20 years ago, pretty much. And I can remember being at one of the meetings that we had with the members there when we were saying, we've got these new duties coming in, and people were going, you're having a laugh. I'm not doing that. Put them up on the board, oversubscribed by, I think there was 4 times as many people put in for them as there was duties. We went back about, I think on the 3-month review, we said to people, well, we're going to take them off you. We weren't being serious, but that's what we said in the meeting. And they nearly chased us out the room. So I think there's always this sort of fear of the unknown a little bit, and fear of change. But I think with this agreement, not just like weekend duties, but with all of it, you've got to look at it as an opportunity, because let's not forget, this time last year we were in a completely different situation. We were in dispute. There were cuts going on all over the place, and because of the support that the members have given us, because without that we'd be nothing, we've been able to turn it round. And obviously the COVID pandemic has also played a part in that, in terms of the traffic profile and the growth. But it's all about, as Tony mentioned, innovation. Tony mentioned, rotations, rotating various parts of duties, whatever. I mean, it isn't all new stuff, all of this. Some of it is, some of it isn't, but let's not be afraid of it. And there are solutions out there that can help people come up with better duty patterns, have more time off work if they want, or even provide more opportunity for overtime in some situations. And I think the other thing that is worth saying is that I know that Terry is in discussions with the business about recruitment and about the level of temporary contracts in the business, and making some of those up, making a number of the people that are part-time up to full-time. And we think that's going to be a very, very positive message that's going to come out very soon. So it is, we are in a better place, and it is about positivity, and it's about looking and embracing some of the things that Tony said to make things better in the workplace. Excellent.
Thanks for that, Dave. I mean, it's funny, really. You've spoken about the 4 pillars, and where we were and moving things on, and that sort of ties into a little bit on the next part, really, which is about the cultural side of stuff. So you particularly, along with Shelley and Katerina, been sort of working with the business on that recent Big Trust survey. It's had I don't know compared for year on year, but certainly depending which function you are from, then the results vary massively. Would you like to sort of cover off a little bit about that, and your reaction really to some of those results, and perhaps what the next stages are, because it did reference that they'll be looking at it more locally.
Yeah, of course, Scott. And I think that it's very easy to be cynical about all of these surveys, and it's very easy to come at it from a position of it won't change anything. We've seen all this before. And to an extent, I think the important thing that everybody should remember is this is about improving the culture. Now, there's been a lot of debate about culture, and it has formed a central plank of the 4 Pillars Agreement, but also in our recent dispute, where we've said that it's got to improve in order to make sure that we move forward together, start growing the business, and start making it a better place to work. So what's happened on the back of that is there was a structure set up where there was what was called a main negotiating group to talk about culture and all the different cultural aspects. Now, at that, unfortunately, when we attended the first meeting, Royal Mail came to us and said, we're running a big trust survey. And we said, trust, we don't know anything about the survey. So it wasn't the greatest start at that particular time. But what we did, we helped to shape the first survey that went out in February, I think it was. Helped to reduce the number of questions on there, make it more streamlined. We didn't actually come out and support it at the time, but we took a neutral position just to see how it went. And when we got the results, there was a bit of a different feel to it than the previous employee opinion surveys, where people were asked about 60 or 70 questions, never got any feedback. The questions didn't actually mean a lot. So on the back of that, we decided to run a joint survey with the business, which had about, I think, 24 questions, which is half the size of the previous employee opinion surveys. And we were able to get some questions in there that we wanted. Some of the questions that we'd asked before when we had the culture visits at the end of 2019. So we've been able to shape that. And the results, headline results, have now been made available. What I will say is that CW members contributed to 90% of the total return. So the total return was 48%, which was around about 66,000 people. Out of that, just over 60,500 were CW members. So thanks to everybody that's completed that. But I think what we're also conscious of is headline results don't necessarily translate down to the workplace. And the important thing now is making sure that these results are used to improve people's conditions, culture, and working environment at a local level. So it's really about how we take that forward. So the next sort of phases in the process are that Royal Mail are going to run through all of the results at a national level next week at the main culture group. They are then going to meet the postal executive next Thursday on the 27th. And following that, they're going to meet the senior field officials, divisional reps, regional parcels organisers in Liverpool, week commencing the 31st of May. So that is going to take place immediately. What will then happen is the results will filter down or will be presented at a local level. But what we don't want to do, we don't want the results just to land at a local level and there's no structure behind that. And we want to make sure that once those results land, the manager and the rep have got the time to sit down and discuss the results, then meet people, tell them about the results, get feedback, and complete a joint action plan. Because what's happened in the past, Scott, with the employee opinion survey is there's been a load of headline results that have come out. Like I said, about 50, 60 questions. A poster's gone up on the wall and it's been left there. And people say, oh yeah, that's good. And the next survey comes along and it's almost like, well, have we really got to complete this? Because nothing's changed. So we want to make sure that there's joint action plans with definitive timelines. And not only that, that they're monitored at area rep level, and field official level. And by that, what I mean is we're going to be coming up with a process where the area reps, when they meet their respective managers, can have a look at all the units under their jurisdiction, make sure that they've all got action plans, and then help monitor the progress on those action plans going forward, and the same at divisional level. But coupled with that, before the results land, we know there's going to be some units where relationships are good and some units where relationships are poor. So that we're also going to be getting it as part of the process that there's a chance for the managers and the reps at the various levels to start identifying units where maybe people don't even want to get in the room together to discuss it, and sort of provide support and make it known where that support's available.
Excellent. I mean, I've got the results on the side of us. As I can put them on screen if we like, so we know what we're actually looking at. So there we go. As a matter of thing. So that's the results. What struck me about the return is particularly national distribution being particularly low, and you got the parcels operation. So would that be like the parcel force, or would that be just parcels? Do you know what I mean? As broad as it is, because the RDCs and the mail centres are separate, you see.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's and then the other thing is you've got a difference between the north and the south. So there seems to be whether that's a bigger buy-in by the north, or whether that's because of the app, because you have to do it online, didn't you, this time? And I know there was some communication errors where you needed a particular code to get on to answer the. Now I know they sent a postcard out, but as you know, most people would tell you that you don't necessarily read everything that comes through the post, do you? You don't. I mean, so it's possible that affected the response rate. And what also struck me from some of the questions, they're very broad. So it talks about, say, your manager. Now, you know, Tony's already touched on the fact that, like Network, we work over not just a standard Monday to Friday 6-2, 2-10, 10-6. The mail centres seem to be moving that way as well, where they're moving outside of the normal constraints of a traditional shift work. And what you're finding is that the managers are actually changing as well. So you don't have a designated manager that you're reporting to or front up with, and then you've got your deputy managers. So it's a bit difficult in some regards to answer some of those questions honestly, because you don't know who you're referring your answers to. Would you sort of agree with that sort of analysis on some of the points anyway, and the response?
Yeah, I think I'd certainly agree with what you said about. I think you said the north and the south, and there's different pockets actually around the country that have taken this up. There's other areas where maybe they've been a little bit more cynical. Maybe the message hasn't got across. I also think that in terms of HGV drivers, for example, and maybe people in parcel force, sometimes it's difficult maybe to get all of them together to have actually had a good lead into the brief itself. And yes, some of the questions are a little bit broad. But what we're going to be looking at as this develops, and we're learning all the time as well to an extent, but in particular units, if there's particular areas that are highlighted, what we'll do then is maybe have a follow-up survey to almost dig down deeper to find out what those underlying problems are, so it doesn't just become a headline, so that there is something below that moves this work forward. Because why this is important is, if we're going to improve the culture and we're going to improve the working environment, we've got to start somewhere. And you've got to ask people what they think. Now, look, it has been a bit of a leap of faith on this in terms of, it's the first joint survey of this size that I can recall us doing with Royal Mail. But as I said, we can't just keep saying culture's bad if we're not going to try and do anything about it. And what we are going to do as well, we're going to be saying that going forward, there's no opt-out to this. Every unit has got, whether that's between the manager and the rep, or whether they need support, but every unit is going to have to come up with an action plan at some point and make sure that that is delivered. So when things are getting changed, even if it's a van out in the yard that's been sat out there for, I don't know, 6 months with 2 punctures, and that gets fixed, that's something that should be seen as a positive. Now, there's going to be a lot more deeper lying things than that in some units, but yeah, we're going to use this as the basis to move forward, not in isolation from culture, but as a part of the whole culture work that's going on.
As we sort of evolve and move on. Exactly. So, do you want to put any comments on that cultural part, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, just one really. I think. Yeah, no, I just think it's one, because Dave said it's about the starting point, and it's about we have to start somewhere in it. And I think the key part that Dave said was around recruitment. So I think what we've landed on the Pathway to Change agreement is actually, for the first time for a long time, is an agreement around improving efficiency and productivity, and what is an agreed measure. So we've agreed weighted output work hour. We're working through all of the bits around that, the unmeasured bits, the bit that has to be quantified, what's a reasonable step in performance. And what that should do is it should move us away from these unrealistic budget and targets that managers get. Because what drives culture, in my view, and I think it's been proven over many, many years, is what happens is an office gets given targets. It, for whatever reason, doesn't fill its vacancies. You run with 2 or 3 vacancies, which then become 4 and 5 vacancies. You then get 2 or 3 people that go sick in an office. Management then's got 10 duties or 10 jobs in a mail centre to cover. The pressure starts to go on the managers because things are failing. They start talking to people inappropriately, and then you hit this vicious circle that everything in an office goes wrong, where actually the catalyst is we haven't got the resourcing right in an office. And I think again, it's about, this is where the test will be whether the business are actually sincere with what they're doing, because the 4 pillars agreement, if you remember, we did a resourcing and quality checklist in every unit after both in terms of processing, distribution, collections, delivery, in terms of an audit, to make sure that the resourcing and the quality was right in every office. But that we did that for one period after the 6 months, and it never was done again. And the problem is then you just go back for that loop. So things may have changed immediately after the 4 pillars agreement, and then they went off track. We can't let that happen again. And this is going to be the point that Dave said. This will be that we've started somewhere. The test will be whether the business are in it for longevity. I think is going to be the key.
Excellent. So speaking of can't say the words, but speaking of the the long haul, we'll sort of move on to sort of the next topic, because the next topic that we're going to be talking about is the collections, and there is a flight path for collection of I believe 3 years. I think there were an LTB came out today or yesterday, and to sort of tying, if you want to sort of outline the collection process and the collod for those people's collection on delivery, and the sort of where they're moving forward with, and then there's a couple of questions already stacked from particular Dave Hutchinson, so we'll get to them. That's the area rep from Leeds, so over to you, Tony.
Yeah, no problem. Cheers, Scott. So I think we've been on a journey for collections on delivery and collections per se since 2009. I think I first got involved in it in 2009 as a working group for Bob Gibson, and then when I got in the executive 2011, picked it up as the sort of lead for collections. And we did the joint statement in 2014 that maintained, at that time post privatisation, maintained collecting from 115,000 post boxes 6 days a week. But we moved to some boxes being diverted to collection on delivery. And to be honest, it stood us in good stead in terms of a process. Obviously, the business have been looking to move to a large remainder of boxes that aren't collection on delivery because of the decline in letter volumes, but predominantly a bigger decline in stamp volumes. So nationally, there's around about 67,000 post boxes that get less than 5 items in a day. So again, if that's being picked up on a collections duty, it's the cost. It's all of the bits that we talk around efficiency and some of the stuff we do. So again, we've had a conversation with a business, a as part of the Pathways to Change agreement about the deployment plan. So the plan will be to maintain associated boxes. So post boxes that are either at post office, or in high footfall areas will remain on a dedicated collection duty, frequent collections across the day, etc. But the ones that are less than 50 items, the 50 items threshold is removed. The ones that have got low volumes in, and it will now move to collection on delivery. Again, we've dealt with it over a 3-year timeline. So for this year, it will be only boxes that aren't a priority post box for the COVID test kits. And then we obviously do year 2 and year 3. So again, it keeps us still emptying 115,000 post boxes a day. The business could quite easily remove sort of 40,000 boxes from the ground and still be complicit with the access specification and the guidelines that they have to work to in terms of Ofcom. So that's the first and foremost. And again, we've, similar to previous agreements, we've got a process in terms of reps engaging their involvement, a challenge process if they need to, in terms of like the identification of the post boxes. Again, the agreement's very explicit that if the people issues can't be dealt with at any given time, particularly like all in one part, that again they can be reviewed, and the deployment plan has to be done in a pragmatic approach. So again, we pick that up because you have to take people on a journey, and then we obviously pick up the growing areas. So again, there'll be lots of new builds going up around the country to delivery points, but also there'll be there's going to be lots and lots of people probably changing the way in which they work. So lots of people working from home, which might mean that some of those post boxes see an increase in volumes going back through them. So at each of the 3-year intervals, there's a review process just to see how those boxes, the volumes increase. We've got an agreement on looking at what the parcel posting boxes look like. So we converted circa 2,000 metre boxes to parcel posting boxes. But again, with the growth in parcel volumes and the traffic around that, we're currently having conversations with the business around what does a new parcel posting box look like, or a hybrid box, so posting letters in, parcels in together. So we're looking at that, and we see that as a growth opportunity. And then you've got some opportunities linking into consumer collections. So again, I think Royal Mail describe it in their financial results today as parcel collect, but it's consumer collections. Now, in theory, that's done on delivery routes, but if I deliver to 600 delivery points, only five of those delivery points can request a consumer collection on any given day. So, on a round with 600 delivery points, potentially it's 595 people a day that can't have a collection. Now, we've made the sort of challenge to the business to say, they did it that way because they believe it's more efficient. Someone's walking up the garden path when they're posting theirs to collect it at the same time. But in lots of instances, we know the size and shape of the parcels, that actually the post person isn't collecting it at the time. They're going back afterwards and picking up in the vehicle because it makes it easier to do that. So on that basis, why can't we use collection duties who are going out at noon, going out on release, going out in the evening? So I might have lost some of the boxes from my collection route, but I could actually go out and do consumer collections, which again means that Royal Mail can offer that to everyone. So we're looking at that. We're looking at same day products. So again, I know this has definitely been done in the Leeds area, where Pharmacy to You was looking at being based in the Leeds Mail Centre. So they would have all their stock in the Leeds Mail Centre. Someone would go in, say 8 till 9:30 in the morning, process all of the orders that needed to be dispatched. That would go out onto the LAT duties to the offices. But we've said, well, why can't you use that to collection duties as well, to make sure that, again, if I've lost a relief collection, that it makes sense for me to deliver that out there. So we see that as, there is a huge opportunity in the collections duties for new products and services for some of the growth agenda, because, again, my lots of the evening collections are based on my first pickup point at 4 o'clock. Well, on the way, I just leave the mail centre 15 minutes early. On the way out to my route, I go to that designated delivery point to pick up the item, or I take out the same day product. And I think that's where Royal Mail's got the ability, because of our, the scale of the operation, 37 mail centres, 1,250 delivery offices, circa, we're going to end up with 310 of those offices being LATs. We have got the ability and the reach to be better than anyone else across the country. And as long as we embrace that And you know, there's lots of, shall we say, I think, challenges that potentially Royal Mail put up in front of us and say, well, it's not cost effective, it's for this reason, or it's this reason. You know, vehicles, how do we do that in terms of, like, back in the day it was only 318 as directed, but again, or had ad hoc time. But you know, I think we've got the solutions to some of those barriers that the business think are in play, and as long as we utilise that, then for us, we've got the ability to maintain a collections workforce in place, deal with the decline in some of the letter volumes, but then embrace new products and services to protect the jobs going forwards.
Excellent. So I think you covered off the questions from Dave, but specifically there's one. It's not that you haven't covered it off, but I think it may want a bit of a wider, broader debate. So that's about not just the LAT products. In fairness, it's about the parcel deliveries, and as one function, the collection function shrinks a little bit, then that could replace, because I mean, I jotted down here about doorstep collections, which is something unique to the delivery function or right and property delivery function, but actually it's a collection in it by definition you're picking up. So it does seem like that the collection as a function and the deliveries as a function are coming closer and closer together, almost as a unified super function, if is a better way of looking at it. It's the beginning and the end. It's the two tails of a rope coming together. So on that basis, where you've got a click of members from the collection side would tend to work slightly later, and then you've got the other flip side that you've got the delivery people are starting earlier. There must be somewhere where actually you can have that 12-hour, 8-hour, 8x8 type delivery and collection period covered by all members, where potentially you're not going to disrupt someone's working life, home life balance. Is that how you see things panning out, Tony? Perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm not saying next week, by the way.
No. I get that completely. No, and I think that this is where you as I say, there isn't one size fits all. So because we've been dealing with the post-box strategy or collections revision process, and also the short working week, Royal Mail have said to us, and I think we've issued it in the LTBs, that nationally there's 117 designated collection hubs. So again, there's lots of other collections that are performed, but actually they're performed, the parent is a delivery office, or it's in the mail centre in terms of distribution collection duties. So again, it looks completely different, but this is where you're right. We will have a mixture of workload that says, Office A opens up at midnight because potentially it's a mail processing unit with CSS operation, and actually it closes its door again at 8 o'clock at night, after the last dispatches. In that scenario, you have got that window to utilise, different duties, and it could be hybrid duties. So it could be that someone does, do a 4-day week where they could do a small part of a delivery, some dedicated parcel routes, and then a collection on the back end. And you've got that option to do all of it in terms of integrated. Now, we've already agreed under the 4 pillars and reintroduced under Pathways Change that LAT can be done by collections duties. I think the challenge we've had is the upstream technology bit. So 2 things are a problem with LAT. One, the pre-advice, get a plan that says you've got 50 items coming, and then 100 turn up, and that happens pretty much every day of the week. But the mail centres and the receiving offices don't necessarily know the fall to earth. Whereas what we're saying is, if that item's at the end of the network at 10 o'clock at night for delivery tomorrow, or 1:30 in the morning for delivery tomorrow, then surely we must be able to know somewhere in the pipeline, it's had a scan, it's gone through automation, and we know that's the delivery point it's going to. And then we know Scott does collection number 1 from Leeds Mail Centre, and he delivers to that industrial estate. Well, that parcel's on the same industrial estate. So why would we put it, say, on Dave delivering a dedicated parcel duty when you're going to the same industrial estate to pick up collection mail? It's about how can we get that technology to provide that upstream information and the technology, because that way we will be able to get to that point, and we then can get it onto collection duties. And again, I think the point I said earlier on is there's some barriers there that are in place at this moment in time, which we think we can tick the box box in there's a breaking that down. And the businesses are massively investing in the technology bit to the point where, you know, once upon a time, the RON app for LAT duties was really poor. We're going to see substantial investment in sort of an increased functionality on those PDAs, particularly when the new PDA comes online or starts to be deployed, which will hopefully mean all of that can come to fruition, mate.
Yep. That's it's a good debate, really. It's around the deliveries and the collection side, and it's actually quite nice to hear some positivity about some vision rather than we don't know how to handle it. Do you know what I mean? Because quite frankly, there's you know, people have a viewpoint, but then no one's coming up with any answers or suggestions. They're just bringing that, well, putting up the hurdles and such. So we've been on for an hour. We've got one last topic to cover. So this is perhaps where I'd like to think everyone's been on because of Tony and Dave collectively, but not just about what money they might be getting in the near future because of average holiday pay. But I'm sure that is a topic that they will like answering. So Dave, in terms of the holiday pay, I know we can't go into too much detail specifics, but if you can give us a bit of an overview where we are, and maybe key milestones where we might get some important information.
Okay, I think this is the issue of holiday pay or average pay on leave has been a long-running issue, and it's been a long-running issue. One, because Royal Mail were estimating some 7 years ago that it was going to cost them about £1 million a week. So you know, that's quite a considerable cost, and it was also about how we got them into a position where we were moving forward on a collective agreement. So it's just a little bit of a history lesson, Scott, if that's all right, because I think it's important to position where we are. In 2014 and the beginning of 2015, the LTBs were put out to branches saying that the legal parties were discussing this matter to try and gain an understanding around it, but the union would support any branch or any individuals that put in their own claim. And there were then a whole series of cases that came out of the legal system that started to set precedent. So there were negotiations that were ongoing, but where the difficulty was that the average pay or the holiday pay only applies to the first 20 days of leave. So it doesn't apply to week 5, or if you're getting 6 weeks a year, just the first 20 days of annual leave. So what the business, in my view, were doing, they were getting into talks every year. The talks were dragging on. And of course, by the time it reached October, November, most people had taken their first 20 days of leave. So actually the pressure was off the business. So at the beginning of 2019, the executive endorsed a strategy which said we're going to sort of grab this now by the throat. We're going to move forward with it with the aim of getting a collective agreement. But in order to put pressure on Royal Mail and to create a pressure point, we're now going to maximise the number of people that put in claims. So what we did some videos supported by some quite wide-ranging communications, telling people in the branches, branch secretaries, the process that they should go through, how they should advertise this to their members, and we wanted them to start putting claims through ACAS. Now, I've got to say, particularly in the northeast, but also in other areas of the country, there were a number of branches that really took this to task and started going out, getting members to put in claims. I mean, in the northeast itself, you had Graham Clough, you had Barry Bowes in the northwest. In our neck of the woods, Ralph Ferret in Plymouth, Rob Waterspoon in Bristol, and the number of claims that went through ACAS started to really increase. Myself, I dealt with, I think, 107 claims. The average payout, Royal Mail started panicking, not to put too fine a point on it, and started making settlements. So, for example, out of the 107 claims that I dealt with, the average claim was worth £345 per member, but I had the highest claim was over £2,000, and the lowest claim was nothing, and that was because the member put a claim in but hadn't actually done any overtime. So that was a bit of a weakness. That was always going to be a little bit of a weakness on their part, and in settling that. So Royal Mail were paying out all this money, and things started to move forward. More and more people were putting in claims as word got round, and they started panicking again. And what ended up happening was that they asked for discussions and negotiations, which we took them up on. But then around about September, October 2019, they just took another decision that they were not going to settle any more claims or make any more offers at ACAS. And that was probably due to the amount of money it was costing. So we were then faced with a bit of a dilemma about how to take this forward, because we didn't want to go back to the old situation where the pressure was off. So what we said to branches was that we wanted to get them to maximise the number of people that went through ACAS and then took their claim to an employment tribunal. Now, I've got to say that at this moment in time, there's over 5,500 of our members that have done that. And they are part of a couple of group claims. Now, I say a couple of group claims because where this has got complicated is it isn't just the case of every claim is together, because there's actually different countries that are grouped together. So England and Wales, the claims are grouped together legally for those two countries. Scotland and Northern Ireland, again, are completely separate. What I can say in terms of the English and Welsh claims is that they are due to go to an employment tribunal in Bristol, which is, there's 10 days put aside, and it starts on the 21st of June. So while I say that there's about, there's over 5,000 claims going there, and that sounds a magnificent number, but what that actually means as well is that there's probably about 115,000 people that haven't put a claim in and haven't taken it to tribunal. So it's not too late to do that, and we would still encourage people to go down that route. Having said that, as the Pathway to Change agreement was signed and endorsed by the members, there were approaches made at quite a senior level, DGSP and the HR director, and dialogues started to move on again on this subject. So we have had a number of meetings now with Royal Mail. We had one this afternoon, and we've made a lot of progress. Having said that, there's still a number of outstanding issues, and some of them are quite complex. The negotiations themselves have really hinged on what is considered regular, because regularity of overtime is the thing that keeps coming back. It keeps coming back in all the legal cases that have gone on and all the legal precedents. So it's about agreeing a level of overtime over a particular reference period that can be classed as regular, that the calculation is then based on. Of course, on top of that, we've then got different pay rates that we've got to consider. So part-timers, for example, in the calculation only get paid, don't they, at single rate up to full-time hours. We've got the issue of back pay, which has got to be sorted out because that's something that we're pushing on. And we've also got still some outstanding legal arguments around maternity, paternity, how that would fit in, etc. So, like I said, we've made a lot of progress. We're hoping, we've got another meeting scheduled for next week, and we're hoping in the very near future to be at a stage where we start getting an agreement together, actually getting the words on paper and starting to then talk about all the words so that they're in the form of an agreement. The clock's ticking because we've got the cases at Bristol on the 21st of June. So if you ask me to predict when the agreement's going to be reached, I think it's going to be sort of maybe not the 11th hour, but maybe the 10th hour. It's certainly going to be going. It's certainly going to be going towards that time scale. But I think that there's been a lot of joint focus on it recently, and hopefully we can get it over the line and get an agreement that, one, will be supported by the postal executive, but two, will be supported by the members, because they'll see that this is the best that we can get going forward.
I think Pete Britt here may have summed that up. Show me the money. but no, I appreciate that overview, Dave, because I mean, I'm conscious that legally, you know, you are restricted a little bit, but there's been a lot of talk, and a lot of talk, and then nothing actually coming out in recent months. So it's nice that you've made that clarity. And really, we're sort of looking. I would imagine Terry will be making an announcement if there's a deal, and I'm sure Chris will be promoting that aspect with a live session, I would imagine. And so we're looking at next month is sort of a key date.
Yeah, next month is the key date, and I mean, I don't know whether Pete actually put a tribunal claim in himself, because I haven't dealt with them all. A lot of them have been dealt with through branches, but we are going to get into a position, I believe, where he will see the money, providing he's done some overtime and qualifies, of course, which I don't know, but we are going to move this forward. Look. Terry, at the appropriate moment, once it's gone through the postal executive, will obviously make that announcement, and make sure that we'll also be communicating what the ballot arrangements are, because it will have to go out and be endorsed by the membership as well. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to consider. Even as much as, you know, if we get to the stage where we got an agreement, what does that mean for all the claims that are currently at the tribunal? Because that's something else that needs to be considered. So it's quite complex, but we are, like I said, we're probably closer than we ever have been. I think this has all got a little bit prolonged and a bit complicated again, and we keep coming back to this, is because of the COVID pandemic, because initially the pre-hearing at the Bristol Tribunal was due to be last April, and because of COVID it got postponed, and it's taken over a year to get a new date, particularly given that you're talking about potentially a 10-day hearing. It's not easy, you know, it hasn't been easy for the tribunal to arrange that, so it has become prolonged. But having said that, on the plus side, that's probably now given us the chance to get a collective agreement rather than just going to the tribunal and taking our chances. And even if a year ago or 14 months ago the tribunal had made a ruling, you've still got a negotiating agreement after that, haven't you? So yeah, I think we're in a good place, man.
Excellent. So just to answer that comment I've just shoved on screen from CAF, does this mean all is not lost? I put my claim in 2 years ago. So I think for absolute clarity, as long as you have got the paperwork in and it's in on time, then it doesn't matter if it takes a year, 2 years, it's still live and active. Is that about the sounds of it, Dave? Yeah,
I mean, assuming Kath, that you've got it registered at the tribunal, which, you know, I don't know where your claim is. If you've got it registered at the tribunal as part of the claim and you've got a reference number and that, yes, you will be part of that claim. But having said that, if we get a collective agreement and there's back pay, you know, I don't know what that's going to look like at the moment, then hopefully that will also take care of you as an individual.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I've got a funny. I'd be interested to know which from Dave and Tony, who is the best area in Yorkshire? Because apparently Peter's thinking that we're the second best in Leeds and West Yorkshire.
Is that in terms of holiday pay or holiday pay claims, or just in general?
I think he's referring in general. He's a Humberside lad. Well, Beverley, aren't you, Pete? From Beverley. But yeah. So, would you like to round off any sort of thoughts, comments about the future and the claims, the culture, the delivery routes, Tony, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, will do, Scott. I mean, I think there's a lot going on, and I think these sessions that you doing on behalf of the North East region and sort of your own branch, the Leeds branch, are really worthwhile because it gives us an opportunity to sort of explain in a bit more detail, away from this hustle and bustle and everything. But I mean, Dave will know that. I know Dave's involved in sort of stuff for the DGSP department and the tracker, which sort of is pulling everything together in terms of the pathway to change agreement. And one of the things I referenced the pipeline talks. I mean, literally, we were having sort of every fortnight we've been having 2 days of face-to-face meetings, and the sheer scale of what's involved in that. I mean, you look at the Northwest Hub, the Midlands Hub, a Southern Hub, you're talking machines that can sort to 900 selections. It's huge. You're talking about the whole network that sits behind those automation hubs. So again, you've got the Northwest Hub that goes live in 12 months. 12 months later, you'll have the Midlands Hub. How do the two hubs integrate together? You'll particularly from a logistics point of view, in terms of like HGV duties and the Arctics. You've got the Midlands Hub will have a new rail terminal going to Scotland and sort of like the north parts of the country. So how does that look? What does that look like? You've got all of the day-to-day stuff we're dealing with. So there's a huge amount. And sometimes I don't think we get enough time, collectively, myself, Dave P, the other P members, to think about some of the things you're doing as well as the reps. So I think these sessions are brilliant. I think our members have done a fantastic job over the last 12 months. I think everyone you speak to, whether it's friends, family, when you're out visiting offices, I think try to say exactly the same for people. So, the opportunity to do this tonight, Scott, has been brilliant. And I think for me, and I've said this, a number of the calls I've been on, the divisions that we're tagged to, is, this is the time for us. We spent the last 2 years in dispute with the business, and sometimes it's easiest to say no. Whereas now, there's lots of opportunities for us in the pathway to change agreement. And whether you're a peer member, whether you're a divisional rep, whether you're a branch secretary, whether you're an area rep, a local rep, or even a CWU member, this is the time I think, for the CWU to shine, and for our members to reap the benefits of what the hard work that they've not just put in over the last 12 months, but for the job that they do day in, day out, and to make sure that we protect their jobs and grow the industry for people in the future. So thanks to you, Scott. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, mate.
Yes, likewise. It's been very interesting. Dave, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I'd like to just thank everybody that's tuned in to listen to us, because from the comments, I can see that we haven't just been chatting to an empty screen, and it's not just the three of us on here. So, I mean, I think that's always a bonus. So thanks ever so much on that. But I think just talking about, just sort of reiterating what Tony said, we're in a much better place now than we were a year ago. But we've seen in the past how quickly things can change. What we mustn't lose sight of now as a union, and with your backing and with the members' backing, we'll always be in a good position if this happens as well. We mustn't lose sight of the fact that there's still a lot of outstanding commitments, even going back to the 4 pillars. So even when revisions go in this time and everybody gets the next hour reduction off the week and the pay increases for those that are part-time, we're still owed a further 2 hours. And that further 2 hours, we mustn't lose sight of that. And we've got to make sure that even though we're in this positive place, that positivity continues. We continue to get the benefits going forward. But if Royal Mail decide to pull the plug and we get someone in like the previous CEO again that decides in the next 6-8 months to go on a different route, that we're ready to react to that. And I know you will be, because apart from just being CW and proud, and also being the most trusted workforce, you've always done us proud and you've always backed us. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Dave. So a reminder about next Wednesday, we've got Carl Maiden, who's going to be answering, well, it's going to be showing us or telling us and ensuring we know about as A, B, C and G. So that's not a spelling mistake. It's about the attendance, bullying, harassment, conduct and grievance procedures. So that will be a worthy one. I'm sure we'll be picking up some comments around the bullying, harassment and culture. But if you've got any of those concerns or questions about those policies and agreements, tune in next Wednesday and Carl will be happy to answer them. So without further ado, thank you again, Tony. Thank you again, Dave. I hope we could do something similar in the future. The invitation is always there. And thanks for watching. Remember, unity.